All right, guys, we're going to dive right into this clip, man. Candace Owens, Theo Vaughn. Let's get right into it.
Like, well, why do you think there's such a strong relationship between the two countries then?
Blackmail. I think blackmail. And I think this is the reason why we don't get to open the Epstein files. We don't get to open the JFK files. And I think it's a form of gaslighting us to pretend that our special friend and ally isn't just and by the way, parking aside America, other countries too. You investigate anything. I mean, I'm investigating Brigitte Macron, and Israeli blackmail comes up in Morocco. Israeli blackmail comes up in. So to pretend that we don't know that Israel is involved in blackmail operations is foolish. And again,
I think all countries are probably involved in them.
And I think that they have been they have gotten it down to a science. And there's no question in my mind that like sexual blackmail is what Jeffrey Epstein was involved in. And I don't know if that means these, people don't know when they go to these parties that the girls are underage, and then it's like, haha, we've got you on tape, whatever it is. And we can even taking a look at the Diddy case, blackmail, these powerful blackmail operations are definitely operating. And
that's actual blackmail
too. It's true blackmail. I mean, if you have hidden cameras and you're capturing people doing drugs and sleeping with underage people. So I think these are blackmail operations, and I think they've been going on for decades in America.
Speaking about Epstein, right? How do you know he's not just a Jewish guy who was being perverted or whatever, and that he was doing business? Like, there's no real connection that he works for Israel, though.
Well, he had passports. Yeah. So, and then it's also his ties to Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell. The whole Mossad attended his funeral. He died in very weird circumstances. I don't think even people who are pro-Zionist would deny that he was obviously Israeli-American intelligence. And he had weird passports. I mean, he had like a Saudi Arabian passport, an Israeli passport, an American passport.
Oh, he's perving then.
And and under different names, by the way. He had working passports of these different countries with different names. You can't just get that. You know what I mean? You can't just get these passports without being connected to the intelligence services. And it was never made clear why he was so rich. So who was giving him all that money? Was this like black ops, our tax dollars going to give him this illusion of wealth and power so that he would party with all of these billionaires? And yes, you're right. Blackmail operations happen all across the world. I think America, in terms of just how America has been seized, that's the only explanation for how Israel's able to expand with such a small population. And somebody has to be fighting their wars. Somebody has to be funding them. We're funding them. So I think we've just become like the piggy bank to them.
But if that's the case, what is the cross relationship? Because I mean, I think the Middle East is historically a place that's not super chill, So that's probably what a lot of people would say is like, oh, well, you need an ally there, right?
Which is so stupid. I hate when people just say stuff. Like one of my things that
it's a strong theory, though.
But it's not. It's just people just say things that are said all the time. Why the hell do we have any business in the Middle East at all? Like, why are you just trying to tell me that like I need an ally? I actually don't.
All right, man. So a couple things here. So she hit the nail on the hammer, guys. So definitely blackmail operations all up and down Washington D.C. by the Mossad. Epstein is a Mossad agent, guys. There's no denying this. I mean, the guy is just you just look at the guy's history and what he was able to get away with. It is unprecedented CIA level type activity, guys. And the one thing he touched on was the need for an ally in the Middle East, right? The Americans. So the reality of it is they do kind of need an ally in the Middle East, because you got to think about it, right? Who's the number one who's the number one provider of or buyer of armaments, of American armaments in the world? And that's Saudi Arabia. They spent $700 billion buying, I think last time they spent like $700 billion buying armaments from the United States, guys. They the petrodollar, they export their oil in U.S. dollar currency. That's really what's holding the dollar, really the value of the dollar. And the key is not to have, because you got to think about it, man. The adversaries, China, Russia, they are drooling and eyeing that entire region, right? They're waiting for America to kick America out, and the Russians and the Chinese are gonna get in there and scoop up what they can, because there's obviously a lot of resources coming out of the Middle East, right? and the biggest of which is petroleum, right? Oil. So imagine the Saudis flip on the Americans because the Americans are weak, and you know they start using yen as the currency to sell oil, right? And they start buying their armaments from China and Russia and Iran and all these places, and they flip on the Americans. The Americans are screwed, man. Like, they lose the Middle East. That's like, you lose very strategic allies that are investing a lot of money into America and that are, strategically, you're not going to be able to dominate on the global economic scale, if you lose the Middle East to the Soviet Union or China, right? Which Russia's already trying to do that, right? They have parts of Syria they've occupied. They've Iran and Russia. You have the Chinese buying ports around, the Mediterranean and coming into Afghanistan, especially building building bases there, and it's a whole lot of shit going on because it's going to decimate the U.S. economy, right? If that region flips on the America, and so Israel's kind of state is there really to benefit itself, right, at the expense of the Americans. So they give America a bunch of intelligence, right, possibly on certain things that will allow America to maintain its hegemony over the Middle East or the West in general. But they do so by holding them hostage to their demands as well, right? Go to war with Iraq for the next 10 years. Go to war with Afghanistan. Now they want a war with Iran. So a lot of American bodies are dying and have to be deployed to these places at the expense of the Israeli vision for the Middle East, which benefits it mainly, but promising to maintain American hegemony in the region, right? So there's that aspect of it, right? They need somebody to work with in order to, not have the Russians and the Chinese come in there and start buying shit up and building shit and, arming people. And so real tricky situation for the Americans, guys. So they're pretty much held hostage, just to correct Candace there. Not only are they being blackmailed, they're being held hostage to Israel's demands that don't necessarily align with American or Western values, So yeah, that's my take on it, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comment sections down below, man. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.